We're here to announce the indictment and arrest of Wendy and Edward Osefo of the 1900 block of Turnberry Court in Finksburg, Maryland. Both Wendy and Edward are reality actors.
They thought they could get away with it, but Wendy Osefo and her husband Edward just got hit with the sentence of a lifetime. Yeah, you heard that right. Goodbye forever might actually be literal this time. Texts, leaked messages, and insider whispers are spilling the tea, and the streets are buzzing with shock. Was this a perfectly executed fraud scheme gone too far? Or were they set up by someone playing the long game? The courtroom drama was wild, the evidence stacked high, and the reactions? Absolutely explosive. Social media is exploding with screenshots of messages that could ruin reputations, and the internet is divided. Some are calling it karma, others are saying this is only the beginning. One thing's clear, Wendy and Edward's empire of luxury, lies, and deception just came crashing down, and nobody saw it coming. Stay tuned, because what happened next is straight up unbelievable. It all started with a quiet tip, one nobody thought would blow up into a full-blown scandal. The whispers in the city were faint at first. Wendy Osefo's empire isn't as clean as it seems, people said, but as the months went by, the pieces started falling into place. Screenshots of text messages between Wendy and Edward surfaced online, showing deals, promises, and hints of deception that were impossible to ignore. "Yo, did you see these?" a source texted a friend late one night. The messages were shocking, casual in tone, but the implications were massive. This isn't just about money, it's about everything they've been hiding. Investigators say the couple meticulously built a network of luxury real estate investments, targeting wealthy clients with promises of exclusive off-market properties. But here's the catch, those properties, many of them didn't even exist, or they were already tied up in other contracts. Old receipts, forged documents, and email chains that looked legitimate on the surface became the smoking gun for the authorities. Inside sources close to the investigation claim that Wendy and Edward would personally reassure investors, invite them to lavish dinners, and flaunt connections in the city's elite social circles. On one leaked video, Wendy is seen sipping champagne at a rooftop party, laughing with an investor. The captions of her social posts read, "Only the best for my VIPs." Meanwhile, behind closed doors, the numbers weren't adding up. A former employee, speaking under the condition of anonymity, said, "It was like walking on eggshells. Everything had to look perfect. But if you scratched the surface, it was a nightmare. Money going one way, promises another. It was like a Ponzi with glitter." The grand jury got involved after a whistleblower forwarded dozens of files to federal investigators. Bank transfers, screenshots, signed contracts, everything pointed to one conclusion: Wendy and Edward weren't just bending the rules, they were rewriting them to fit their own narrative. One detective said, "The audacity is what shocked us. They didn't even try to hide it well. Emails, text threads, receipts, everything was traceable. But they acted untouchable." And that's when the arrests happened. Early morning, unannounced. Black SUVs rolled up to the Osefo residence. Neighbors recall seeing agents in tactical gear, papers in hand, approaching the house like a military operation. "I couldn't believe it," said a neighbor who watched from across the street. One minute they were living the perfect life, the next, handcuffs. I mean, Wendy waving to the camera like it was a photo op, and then, nothing. Just chaos. Inside the courtroom, Wendy sat composed, but her hands betrayed her. Edward leaned back, scanning the room, calculating, waiting for any chance to turn the tide. The charges were serious: multiple counts of insurance fraud, conspiracy to defraud, wire fraud, and falsifying records. Each carried years of prison time. Leaked court documents revealed staggering numbers. The couple allegedly scammed investors out of hundreds of thousands, possibly millions. Contracts were manipulated, deposits rerouted, luxury properties promised that never existed. Every detail exposed painted a picture of a meticulously planned scheme. Dialogue snippet from the court. Prosecutor, "The evidence is clear. These actions were deliberate. Every step of the way, you misled, you manipulated, and you profited at the expense of others." Edward, "Your Honor, we were running a legitimate business. There's nothing here that wasn't disclosed." Wendy, "I did what I thought was best for my clients. Any mistakes were not intentional." Witnesses shook their heads in disbelief. A financial analyst called to testify described how the couple used new client funds to pay off older obligations, creating an illusion of success that wasn't real. "It's textbook Ponzi," she said, "except with a lot more glitter and power lunches." The fallout wasn't just legal. Social media exploded. Screenshots of texts, voice notes, and insider testimonies circulated on Twitter, Instagram, and gossip blogs. Fans who once admired Wendy's lifestyle and Edward's savvy business sense turned critical overnight. Memes appeared almost instantly. Wendy Osefo, the Real House of Lies, read one viral post. Even fellow reality personalities were caught off guard. Some whispered support, others distanced themselves immediately. Everyone knew the story wasn't just about fraud, it was a scandal that could topple reputations and careers. And here's where it gets even juicier. Sources say the couple tried to cover their tracks even after the investigation began. Bank accounts were closed, emails deleted, even properties quietly sold under the radar. But the digital trail? Too long, too detailed, too damning. By the end of the day, Wendy and Edward were not just arrested, they were trapped in a situation spiraling out of control. Friends, investors, and insiders all watched as the empire they thought was untouchable started crumbling, piece by piece. And as the camera pans out from the courthouse, one thing is crystal clear: this isn't just a fraud case. It's a story of power, deception, and high-stakes ambition that went too far, and now, Wendy Osefo and Edward Osefo are paying the price. The moment Wendy and Edward stepped into the courthouse holding cells, the tension was electric. What started as a scandal on paper was about to become a living nightmare. Sources inside the detention facility said the couple immediately drew attention, not just because of their names, but because of the magnitude of their alleged crimes. Guards whispered, inmates watched, and everyone knew these weren't just ordinary arrestees. Wendy kept her composure on the outside, but insiders claimed she was already aware she might be in real danger. One source close to the investigation revealed that from the moment she walked through those iron gates, threats started coming in. Anonymous notes slipped under the door, hushed warnings from other inmates, and even small confrontations in the yard, all designed to rattle her. Edward, ever the strategist, tried to maintain control. "Stay calm, play it smart," he reportedly told Wendy in a hushed tone, pacing the cell like a general mapping out the battlefield. But as the days passed, the situation intensified. Someone, or something, was orchestrating chaos around them. Leaked messages from inside the facility suggest that Wendy was targeted almost immediately. One insider claimed, she got too comfortable, too loud. People saw the spotlight, and suddenly she became a threat, or a mark. The incident started with what appeared to be a minor verbal altercation in the common area. A seemingly casual argument escalated faster than anyone could anticipate. Wendy, known for her bold, unflinching attitude, didn't back down. And that's when it happened. Multiple inmates reportedly cornered her, surrounding Wendy like predators circling prey. A scuffle broke out, brief but violent, leaving her shaken, bruised, and rattled. Officials labeled it a minor altercation, but insiders paint a much darker picture. Wendy was not only attacked but strategically isolated to prevent immediate help. Edward, meanwhile, was dealing with his own web of threats. Other inmates, aware of the Osefos' alleged financial schemes, approached him with veiled warnings and subtle intimidation. It wasn't just about survival. It was a psychological game. Every move monitored, every conversation analyzed. The question lingering in everyone's mind: who inside the prison was connected to the money, the power, the fraud, and what lengths would they go to protect it? One expert on prison dynamics, speaking anonymously, explained, when high-profile criminals enter a facility, they're seen as walking wallets or power threats. If someone thinks you know too much, or if your actions could expose them, you become a target. That's what's happening here. Wendy's legal team tried to intervene immediately, requesting access, protection, and medical evaluation. According to insider reports, those requests were denied or delayed. Wendy was transferred from one section to another, allegedly for her own safety, but sources claim the move placed her closer to inmates with connections to her real estate fraud case. It was a calculated risk, or maybe a setup. Edward reportedly discovered subtle clues in the facility. Conversations intercepted by other inmates, notes slipped into his belongings, even the guards' unusual delays in responding to calls for help. Everything felt orchestrated, he told a close friend. It wasn't random. They wanted us rattled, isolated, scared. The tension reached a boiling point during recreational hours. Wendy, attempting to maintain her dignity, walked through the yard surrounded by other inmates. Witnesses later described an eerie calm before the storm, then sudden chaos. A former inmate claimed, she was surrounded in seconds. It wasn't spontaneous. It was like they had rehearsed it. One moment she was walking, the next, she was on the ground, bruised, trying to protect herself. Meanwhile, Edward noticed subtle alliances forming against him. Inmates whispered, others stared, and the atmosphere thickened with silent threats. The power balance inside the prison was shifting, and the Osefos were learning quickly that the world outside, their money, connections, and influence, meant almost nothing here. Lawyers scrambled to get access, sending urgent messages to prison officials. Leaked internal communications, however, suggest the system was slow, or worse, deliberately unresponsive. Wendy's medical needs were addressed only after delays, and Edward was given minimal protection. Every action, or inaction, felt like part of a larger design. Some insiders even hinted at the unimaginable, that Wendy's attack was a warning, a signal to remain quiet, or else. Experts in criminal networks claim this isn't uncommon. When someone has information that could topple powerful people, sometimes the threats start behind bars, and that's exactly the line the Osefos found themselves on. By the end of the week, the couple realized the stakes were higher than ever. Wendy was bruised, shaken, and angry. Edward was frustrated, calculating, trying to map out every potential move to survive the prison's psychological minefield. The courthouse battle wasn't over, but now the real war had begun, inside the prison walls. The chilling question remained, was this just prison politics, or was someone orchestrating a full-scale plan to silence them? Every text, every whisper, every delay pointed to one inescapable conclusion: the Osefos were trapped in a high-stakes game of survival, and the outcome was far from guaranteed. As whispers turned into rumors and rumors into viral posts online, one thing was clear: the story was no longer just about fraud. It was about power, control, and fear. And for Wendy and Edward Osefo, the real battle had only just begun. By the time the courthouse doors swung open, Wendy and Edward knew they weren't just facing a sentence. They were stepping into a storm that had been brewing for months. Outside, the media swarmed, flashes firing like gunshots, and the crowd's murmurs grew louder with every step. But inside, the tension was thicker, almost tangible, like the walls themselves were closing in. The judge's gavel hit the desk, echoing through the room like a drumroll for fate itself. "All rise," someone whispered. Wendy's hands gripped the edge of her seat, knuckles white. Edward's jaw was tight, eyes scanning every corner, reading the room like a chessboard. Then it happened, the sentence. Years of alleged fraud, deception, and manipulation were crystallized into one devastating announcement. Wendy's face froze, a flash of shock, disbelief, and anger flickering across her features. Edward exhaled slowly, the weight of it pressing down like iron chains. But the courtroom wasn't the only battlefield. Inside the prison, the ripple effect of their conviction had already begun. Word spread fast. The Osefos were now marked, high-profile targets, not just for inmates, but for anyone with ties to the money, the scandal, or the secrets that Wendy had carried so carefully. One insider described the atmosphere. It's like the entire place shifted. People knew exactly who they were, and suddenly, the rules had changed. In the visiting area, their lawyers exchanged urgent whispers. "They're trying to isolate her," one said. "This isn't just about prison hierarchy, it's about sending a message. You want the truth? They want silence." Wendy's eyes met Edward's. No words were needed. They both knew the stakes had escalated far beyond courtroom drama. Outside observers began piecing together the shocking timeline. Investigators found that some of the fraudulent transactions Wendy had orchestrated weren't just minor schemes. They involved major investors and shadowy figures with power far beyond local authorities. One leaked document suggested that if Wendy spoke out, it could trigger a domino effect exposing billion-dollar operations. Suddenly, the assault inside the prison took on a new meaning. A warning, a calculated attempt to keep her quiet. And then came the whispers of the second attack. Reports circulated that Wendy had collapsed in her cell under suspicious circumstances, officially stress and dehydration, but witnesses told another story entirely. A struggle, a targeted move, something orchestrated behind closed doors. Edward's face paled when he heard the details. "They're not stopping," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "They want to break her before she can even speak." The shocking climax wasn't just legal. it was personal, psychological, and terrifying. The couple realized that everything they had built, their empire, their brand, their identity, had now become a weapon against them. Every ally outside seemed powerless. Every official statement seemed carefully crafted to mislead. And inside, survival was the only currency that mattered. But here's the twist: the Osefos weren't ready to fold. Wendy, bruised but unbroken, refused to stay silent. Edward, sharp and calculating, began piecing together every lead, every anomaly, every insider tip that could turn the tide. They understood one undeniable truth: this was no longer just about punishment for fraud. This was about power, secrets, and a system determined to keep them down. As the camera pans back and the story goes viral, one chilling thought lingers: how far will powerful people go to protect their secrets? And can Wendy and Edward survive long enough to expose the truth? The verdict is just the beginning. The danger, the conspiracies, and the shocking revelations are only getting started. And trust me, this story is far from over. Yo, listen up. This isn't just another celebrity scandal. This is a full-blown thriller, and you're witnessing it before anyone else. Wendy and Edward Osefo are out of the courtroom but trapped in a game bigger than they ever imagined. Secrets, power, and danger are closing in, and the next move could change everything. And here's where you come in. If you want the inside leaks, the hidden messages, and the shocking twists that no news outlet dares to show, you need to comment "next video" right now. Trust me, you do not want to miss what's coming. Every secret, every betrayal, every explosive detail is about to drop, and the Osefo story is far from over. Hit that like, subscribe, and turn on notifications because when the next update drops, it's going to shake everything you thought you knew. Are you ready?